Hi, I'm Denise Rolark Barnes, and I'm here with Mrs. Norma Anderson. Today is November the 11th, 2020, and she's at her residence here in Washington, D.C., and so am I. So I'm very proud and honored and grateful to do this interview with Ms. Anderson, who's agreed to share her oral history with me and to talk in particular about the Washington section of the National Council of Negro Women. I'm excited to hear Ms. Anderson's story, beginning with her childhood up until today and her life experiences and how the Washington section of NCNW shaped those experiences. So on behalf of all who will benefit from your wisdom and valuable memories of serving as a celebrated member and president, Ms. Anderson, we are truly grateful for your contributions to our initiative. So thank you very much for your willingness to share your story.
I am really honored to have been asked because I feel that I'm not the least one to be asked about the Washington section. My name is Norma E. Anderson, and I do not live in Washington, D.C. I live in Maryland.
Oh, correct.
That's where I moved here from Minneapolis, Minnesota, back in 1978. So it's not, I did not grow up in Washington, D.C. or the Washington, D.C. area.
Before you go on, Ms. Anderson, what does the E stand for?
Elizabeth.
Okay, all right.
It was my grandmother's name. So.
And what about Norma?
Named after my grandmother.
And what about Norma?
I don't know how they came up with Norma. They always called me Norman or something like it. It was closer to Norman than Norma. But that was okay because my nickname was Belle, so they could say that very well. So at home, I was always known as Belle.
And so where's your hometown?
I grew up in Fulton, Tennessee, on a farm. And so I'm one of those Tennessee hillbillies. We had chickens, cows, and pigs, and horses, and we grew cotton and corn, and peas, and all of those things that farmers grow, and had a nice garden every year. We had fruit trees and all of that.
Help me to get a sense of where you said Fulton. Where's Fulton?
Fulton is 19 miles from the nearest town. It is a farm, and 50 miles north of Memphis, Tennessee. Okay. So our farm is like 2 miles from the Mississippi River.
Amazing.
So if you look at the Tennessee map and you look at the Mississippi River and just look close to it, you'll see the little spot where we would be in Fulton, Tennessee.
And how many people were in your family?
In my family, I grew up in a family of, it was probably 8 of us at home at one time, but I have 5 brothers. I had 5 brothers and 6 sisters. So it was a large family. And as I say, we were farmers.
Where did you fall among the 8 children?
4th from the bottom.
Okay.
So they're 3 younger than I am.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. And what about your mom and your dad? Were they both farmers, or?
They were both farmers. I believe my father worked on the river boats. You know what, they had the river boats at that time, and so that was one of the areas he worked on the river boat, and that farm was a spot that I guess he found and said, "That's where I'm going to plant my roots," and so that's what happened. And Mom, that was her. That's where she grew up, in Fulton, Tennessee.
Wow. Do you know how they met?
Probably, as I said, he was a riverboat person that worked on a riverboat. So you don't know anything about riverboat. I don't know that much other than I know that he worked on a riverboat before buying that farm and starting the farm.
Wow. And I'm asking because, I'm doing some ancestry root stuff as well. And just certain questions I wish I could ask folks, but I can't because they're not here any longer.
Right.
But did you know your grandparents?
My grandmother both grandmothers, I remember being a real small child, 2 or 3 years old, and they were there. And so other than that, but no, I didn't know them that well. But I was like 2 or 3 years old when they passed.
So growing up on a farm is something that's pretty foreign to a lot of people,
I'm sure.
especially me. So, I mean, what was that? What was the family routine like?
Well, if you had cows, milking cows, you got up in the morning, you had to go milk the cows before you could have breakfast. So that was one of the routines that you had, and then with the pigs and the chickens, all of that had to be fed and tended to prior to breakfast, and then it was breakfast, and then if you were going to school, then you could go off to school. So it was work before you went to school.
So you
You know,
got up at about what time in the morning?
pardon?
What time did you normally, the family have to get up every morning?
It was 5, 6, depending on what the day's work was going to be. And
Hmm.
when you're going to school, you had to be up at 5 or 6 because we didn't have buses taking us to school. We had to walk to school, and that was that 2 mile walk every morning to school.
And did the littlest, I mean, you were in the middle, so so at what point did you have duties, responsibilities, either in the household or on the farm?
Household, we had clean, keep the house clean, and then when there was crops to be tended to, if you were not old enough to do the hard work, you had to bring the food out to the fields and water. So that was your duty. And then when there were younger children, you got to be babysitters to those younger brothers and sisters.
Was it different for the girls and the boys? Did they do different jobs?
No, yes, in a sense, boys got to plow the fields, but girls never were required to do that, but boys did.
Wow. And then what happened? I mean, how did your family earn its living? I know it's from farming. So then what happened?
When we raised cotton, and cotton, after it was picked, it was sold in town, and that was the money for the year. And he had to budget that money until, and he could sell horses, pigs, cows, anytime that they had to have funds, larger amount of funds, they would that was a fallback uh, place to earn money.
Wow. Yeah, I neglected to ask you, and I hope you don't mind me asking. What year were you born?
1935.
Wow. Okay. All right. And so, the country was in transition in a lot of ways, particularly in the South. I mean, what do you remember? And maybe let's start with going to town with your dad when the family would go when he was selling some of the crops. What was it like to go
Well,
in
the
town?
boys got to go with him when he was selling crops. Otherwise, girls didn't go. When we went to town, was to pick out one pair of shoes or a dress or something for some special occasion, like Easter, Mother's Day, or if you were on a church program. Because I've always been a member of the church. We grew up in the Baptist church here in the area. I go to a Methodist church. So, but we grew up, and so that would be the time of going to town. And at the time when I was younger, we did not have a car, so you caught a bus from Fulton, Tennessee to Ripley. That was our big city to shop in.
Hmm. Was Ripley pretty integrated?
No,
No.
it was a typical southern town where they had um, white and black fountains and white and black restrooms. You sit in the back of the bus. What else did they? All the typical thing that you see now in the movies. We lived it.
Yeah. One of my favorite journalists is Ida B. Wells.
Mm-hmm.
And I know she's from my mother's hometown in Tennessee, and I don't know why I can't think of the city now.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that there was some. I mean, Ida B. Wells became known because of her, anti-lynching movement and all
Right.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And did you all ever observe or talk about that, or did you hear your family talk about that?
No, and looking over the question today, I thought about Dad was a Mason and mom was an Eastern Star. So other than their involvement with the church and that, we didn't get, as children, we would hear about things nationally like that from mom and dad, but we wouldn't necessarily talk about it in a sense. But dad had a sense that, or the community knew my dad, and he did not take any gruff from anyone. So they would say those are those Elam children, and so you know we were not spoiled children, but they knew whose children that they were.
Yeah. What are some of your, yeah, I guess your fondest memories about, growing up in Fulton?
My fondest memory is knowing that I was not going to be a farmer. That was not in my cards. I that was going to school. I knew that I had to learn to do something else because that was just too hard to work for me.
Hmm.
Uh, Chopping cotton and corn and pulling corn and all that in the sun, and when it was cold, that was just not for me.
Yeah. And as far as school was concerned, I think about my dad who grew up in Texas, and he used to talk about, the boys would go to work and the girls would would go to school. Was that the same kind of thing in your household, or did both the boys and girls go?
Both boys and girls went to school, but as I said, after the work was done,
Hmm.
and they would maybe miss more time at school than girls, but they had to go to school. There was no getting out of that. We were taught to read and write and what was right and wrong. So no, there was no excuse.
And you talked about, you had to go and do your chores before breakfast. So it sounded like breakfast, which is far from what we see today,
Uh,
was at a set time every day. Is that right?
pretty much so. After the work was the early work with the chickens fed, hogs fed, the cows are milked. Yes, then you could cook your eggs and bacon and biscuits. And mom always made biscuits from scratch, so it wasn't you didn't buy bread. That was one of those luxuries to buy bread in the store.
Hmm.
She always cooked.
Yeah, think about it. Store-bought bread is a luxury. Now it's home baked bread, which is a luxury.
Absolutely.
Did you pick up that skill?
No, no, I don't. I don't think any of the sisters actually real bakers. We can make cakes. That's no problem. But as far as the bread, we never got that skill.
Yeah. And what was church life like? Did you go every
It,
Sunday?
as I said, other than we had the um, Mother's Day program, we had the Easter program, we had the Children's Day program, we had the Father's Day program. So that was all, and we were at church every Sunday. There was no staying home because you didn't feel good or you worked too long. You went to church on Sunday.
Was it an all
But
day
now we didn't
affair?
have evening services there because
Oh.
the pastors were from, some of them preached at more than just one church. So there
Hmm.
was no one, you didn't have afternoon programs and things of that such.
And, I mean, again, you just think about movies or other things that you've seen, but that Sunday outfit. Did you have one?
We had our Sunday outfits, yes, absolutely. That you did not wear to school and you did not work in. Yes, we did.
Do you remember yours, your favorite one, or what?
No, it was just a blouse and a skirt.
Hmm.
Blouse and a skirt, and sometimes these skirts were made from flour sacks. They used to have some beautiful uh, material that the flour came in huge 50-pound bags, and so
Mm.
we would use that to make blouses and skirts.
Wow.
We did learn to sew.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
We did learn to sew,
The
but
boys too?
no. They had to learn to put buttons on though. There was
Oh,
no excuse for not being able to do a button. So yes, yet they were able to do that. But and they learned, and they also were taught to cook because they
Hmm.
said there was no sense in having someone someone had to wait on you hand and foot. So you have to learn to cook.
Sounds progressive. Sound like a progressive household. Let's,
Oh yes,
survival
very.
skills.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So the sewing, what did you have? Like, was it a sewing machine or did you
We
sew
have
by
sewing machine.
hand?
Yes,
Good, good. Yeah.
and mom was a quilter too, so she made quilts for the beds, and so we
Oh,
learned how to
nice.
quilt.
Do you
My
still
sister,
quilt?
no, I don't, but my older sister does.
Uh-huh.
She's 95 now,
Wow.
and so she's still quilting.
Okay.
Loves it.
So when you went to school, I guess, do you know what age you were when you started school?
Um, Actually, about 4,
Wow.
because what else is a 4-year-old going to do who can read and write and do everything else before they go to school, but to go to school. When we got to school, it wasn't a matter of learning our ABCs because we would have learned that while we were home.
Who taught you?
Because
I mean,
mom
did
and
this,
dad did not go past 3rd grade, but they wanted to make sure that their children did. And so they prepared them as best they could. And you had to learn how to read the Bible, so you had to learn those things.
and did your older siblings help in teaching
Yes,
subjects?
absolutely.
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds like a model for what we need today with these schools now having at home or virtual classrooms, that there's still an opportunity to learn and to learn well.
Absolutely. When one was studying, everyone had to study. If you had if you were in school, you did not come home and just leave your books there and pick them up when you go back to school. You had to, if you had lessons to do, you had to get those lessons done after your work is done, but you had lessons to do. Yes.
And you said reading the Bible. Was there a certain time of day when you all had to do that?
We'd make
To
sure that Saturday evening, that
Mhm,
whatever the Sunday school lessons were for Sunday, we'd have to leave those Bible verses and everything
mhm.
so that we could discuss it at Sunday school.
Oh, okay. All right. And what about holidays? This is fascinating. I mean, I'm asking you questions like, but I'm getting a sense of what life was like for you and so many people, that grew up on farms and at a time when we didn't have all this internet and cable television and all that stuff.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Christmas was a big deal. Thanksgiving wasn't so much because we were still harvesting crops at that time.
Hmm.
But we would have dinner, but it would not be a big lavish dinner. But between Thanksgiving and Christmas, that's when we would bake our cakes and pies, and they had the storehouse for putting it aside and keeping it cool until Christmas time. So they, they would put apples in the barrels with the cakes, and it would have all that nice flavor in it when you take it out and cut it for
Hmm.
dinner. It was great. But
Did
so the
you?
Christmas dinner was, you always had a big chicken or turkey. It wasn't so many times we'd have turkey, but chickens, we always had a baked chicken
Hmm.
for Christmas, and pies and cakes and beans and cabbage and greens and all we had. It was just in one dish. It was a feast for
Wow.
Christmas.
I'm getting hungry. So I mean, were there like aunts and uncles or other family members that
We
would
had
come?
uncles there, and my older sisters who had married and are gone away and come back with their children. Yes, would come home for Christmas. So yes, it would be and always when it was Christmas, you would always have um, community members who were knowing how well mom cooked. They would try and find their way there to get something to eat.
Mhm.
So yes, we always have visitors for Christmas.
Wow. And how did you celebrate birthdays?
There was not much celebration of birthdays at all
Well,
while I was growing up.
mhm.
As I said, we were just poor dirt farmers. We did well to get that Christmas, not Christmas, but Mother's Day and Easter outfit. To think about having it for our birthdays, that was not one of the things.
Wow. Are there still family members on the farm, on the land?
There's a family member on the land, but it's a nephew right now on the land.
Mhm.
It is no one is down there because they had water in the roof leaked, and so they got mold in the back, so they had to leave the house because it was contaminated.
Mhm.
But it needs to be torn down really right
Yeah.
now. It's,
About how many acres of land did your dad
we had,
have?
we had, uh, we had 100 acres, but I think we sold off 2 acres for one of the electrical companies.
So your family still owns about 90 some acres of land?
Mhm.
Wow. But there's no one on the land?
No one is doing anything on it because, well, that our children did not grow up to be farmers, so they did not know anything about taking care of a farm.
Right. Right.
So no, my sister
Wow.
just left last year when they had the mole.
Okay.
She was there. The one that's 96, she was there.
Mhm. Amazing. So do you all ever have family reunions?
We had family reunion every other year. We did not have it this year because of the pandemic.
Right.
It was
Right.
due to be in Atlanta this year.
Mhm.
But
But you don't do you go back to Fulton ever?
yes, in fact, we had it set up that we would go there at least every third family reunion. So it would be next year that would have been time to go back to the farm.
Okay.
Not next year, but the next cycle of the family reunion, 2 years
Yeah.
from this year.
Wow. I hope if you go, you take pictures.
We take a lot of pictures on the
Mhm.
family reunions, yes.
Good, good. So, what encouraged you to leave Fulton? Was it school? Was it your older siblings going off and going to other places? What
Yes,
was
my
it?
my brother, oldest brother, that's just older than I am. He had gone off to the army, and came back after 2 years and graduated at the same time that I did. So he received a scholarship to Lane College, and so I took the scholarship because he was going on a GI Bill. That was what the big thing.
Mhm.
And so that when I spent a year there, the following year I went to Michigan and I spent a year in Michigan and went to Michigan State College. And from that I went to work, and so I didn't finish up my college until oh, in the 70s when I went to the Minnesota State University.
What were your aspirations as a young child? What did you want to do when you grow up?
I had the big aspirations of being a secretary to a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. And then when I got in school and found out that I did not know how to take shorthand, and never got that knack down to doing shorthand well enough. So I ended up being a typist and a transcriber. So that was all that I ended up doing. But for as far as occupation goes,
Lane College is where's Lane?
it's um, hmm, it is. I think it's 20 miles north of Ripley, Tennessee. So,
Okay.
yeah, so it's a little further up on the Mississippi River.
Is it still there?
Yeah, oh yes,
Okay.
I believe it's one of the still the black colleges.
Okay. I have to look that up. Yeah, I remember a Lane College, but I just don't remember where it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I'm sure it's 20 or 30 miles north of Ripley, Tennessee.
My mother, again, I keep going back to family, but she left Tennessee as a little girl and moved with
Mhm.
her aunt in Detroit. And it seemed
Mhm.
as though that was part of that northern, migration from
Yes, it was.
Tennessee to Michigan.
Mhm.
What was it about Michigan? Maybe because it was so close to Canada or something. What took people there?
Yeah, no, but my older brother was in the army and he was stationed in New York. And so that he married someone in New York, and after he retired from the military, he moved to Michigan.
Hmm.
So that's how we got into Michigan.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And when
And
you say we, who was we?
uh, the family members, because after he moved from New York to Michigan, then my sister, that's 2 years older than I am, or 4 years older than I am, she moved there, bought her a farm in Michigan too.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
They bought them a farm. See, they were farmers, not me.
Right.
The
Nope.
two of them,
I
yes.
want to sit behind a desk and type.
No, I didn't want to do
Answer
that either.
phones. Yeah.
That's what I ended up doing for the first 2 or 3 years.
Uh-huh. So the school you went to in Michigan was again,
Michigan State
oh,
University.
okay, okay. All right. And there you studied,
Business administration.
okay,
Mhm.
because you still wanted to work in an
I
office?
still wanted to work in an office, but
Mhm.
it was just that I wasn't coming up with the skills to do that. So after I graduated, did what did I start working for the state of Illinois as
Oh,
a typist? Yeah.
so you moved from Michigan to Illinois?
Hmm.
Okay. All right. And then what part of Illinois did you live in?
That was in Chicago.
Okay. That's a
I
nice
lived in
place.
Chicago for 10 years, actually.
How did you like Chicago?
It was great. And friends and it was it was great. I thought it was great. But then when the Postal Service had decided to consolidate its accounting business into, with the larger computers, they moved it to Minnesota. That's how I got to Minnesota.
Wow. Okay. What part of Minnesota?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
It was cold.
Yes, very cold. Winters, very hot summers. So yes, indeed, it was
And how long did you stay in Minnesota?
14 years.
Okay. Any life-changing things happened either in Illinois or Minnesota? I know you
Um,
graduated from college in Chicago, but I mean in Detroit, in Michigan. But,
I went to Michigan there for that 1 year,
right.
but no, I got married in Minnesota and divorced in Minnesota. So yeah, very, very happy days.
You found them
Very
and you
sad
left them.
days.
Wow. How long were you married?
Like 3 years.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Well, it was just not to be. That was all.
Yeah. Yeah. So then how did you end up in Washington or in the Washington area or in Maryland?
Yeah, the office. Well, I worked in the office of finance in the postal data centers.
For the
In
post office?
Yeah, postal data center. Yes, post office.
Okay.
I worked for the post office.
Okay.
But I was in the postal data center, as I said, doing keyboard key punch entries. And so a job opened up in, well, I knew the person who had the job here in Washington, D.C. We were very good, talking to each other over the phones and everything. So that when he decided to retire, and he said that this would be the perfect place for me to move to, and I could have that job. So that's how I moved from Minnesota to Washington D.C. area.
So when you say key
I got
punch,
promoted.
oh,
Mhm.
great.
No,
Congratulations.
but when I moved here, I was just writing the instructions for how to maintain the vehicles that Postal Service runs around the streets,
Hmm.
and how to maintain them, how they were ordered, how it just everything to do with vehicle that the Postal Service owns and
Yeah.
operates. Mhm.
So I'm going to go back because you mentioned key punch,
Yeah.
which my father-in-law worked with the government printing office.
Mhm.
It's a new name now, government publishing something.
Right.
But that's when they had those, I guess, those computers that would
Yeah,
fit
you
the
use the
whole phone.
cards. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How did that work? What did you have to do?
It was a machine that created those punches and those cards, and
Uh-huh.
then you had machines that would be able to read the cards and print out the information that was on it.
Right. So
And
that was the early days of
very early
computers.
days of the computer. That's how it got started.
Hmm. I know the movie, because I know they showed women who were doing that in the what is it, Hidden Figures?
Yes.
And a lot of those women were key punch operators, and they showed
Mhm.
those big. When you saw that film, did you see it, first of all?
Yes, I did. I
Yeah.
did see it.
Did
Yeah.
it bring back memories?
I remember that. I remember that. But we were not. I guess that took place at, I think, in Texas, didn't it?
Actually, it's in Virginia.
No, in Virginia. Okay, but I'm just saying that the way that they were being treated, I didn't have that treatment at all, because, as I said, when I got my job, I was in Chicago, and so that was how things were done in Chicago.
Hmm. I was going to ask you that question. So, you've been pretty fortunate, it seems, not to really have experienced a lot of the racial discrimination, other than what you saw as a small child, but you seem to have escaped some of that.
Well, as I said, when your parents are very strong and are looked up to in the community, you don't really have to, even from those that say, well, you can't talk to my child because you're black and they're white. But that was just the way things were, and so you didn't put yourself out there.
So that's good. But there were things going on in the world, right?
Yes.
There's, like the passage of the
Mhm.
um, Brown versus Board of Education, which,
Absolutely.
ended discrimination in education, well, supposed to, integrated schools and other laws. And of course, Dr. King and the whole civil rights movement. Did you find yourself involved, or even did you focus on any of that during your
I
early
did
days?
not. And one of my coworkers asked, did I go protesting when people were protesting? I guess Dad just would have been frowning on that if we'd even considered it,
Hmm.
because he was first most want to go and talk to the head person and tell them what was going to happen and what his children are going to do. But so no, we did not get involved with that at all.
Yeah. I mean, Dr. King, as we know, was assassinated in 68.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure where you were in 1968, but I know you heard about it and knew about it. Did that, affect you in any way?
No, I was in Chicago at that time
Hmm.
working. Yes, no, it didn't. Other than it was just a sad day.
Hmm. Do you remember where you were when you heard the news?
No, I other now I can remember when Kennedy was assassinated.
Hmm.
That I was taking a soaring class, and it came over the radio. We were listening to the radio.
John Kennedy or Robert? Which one?
Hmm?
John or Robert? Which Kennedy?
Oh, John Kennedy.
Hmm.
So I was taking a class, and so I remember that one very well.
Right, right. So coming to Maryland, and you came to work, the Postal Service brought you here,
Hmm.
and now you're near the nation's capital. Did you come into DC, or did you move to Maryland? Where were you
I
living?
actually moved to Maryland,
What part?
but I'm in Hyattsville.
Okay.
I lived in Beltsville for 2 years until I was able to buy a house, because I was living in a condo and I didn't like condo living.
Mm-hmm.
When you grow up in a house all the time, from childhood, I never lived in an apartment,
Right.
so anyway, so as soon as I was able to buy a house, I moved to Hyattsville.
So what year was that when you came to the DC area?
78.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's
It
when.
was still kind of early. I mean, I know that in the district, I think Marion Barry had become mayor of the District
Yes.
of Columbia.
Remember?
He helped a lot of Black folks to get great jobs and got great incomes, and they all
Mhm.
moved to Maryland.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I mean, did you see kind of changes in your neighborhood from the time you moved there to now?
Not in my neighborhood.
Hmm.
No, no.
As it is
Not
it
not that affected me at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it predominantly Black, or is it mixed, or where are you?
Well, my neighborhood is mixed.
Okay.
It is more, I've got to say, more predominantly Black now, but now that the Spanish are moving in, it's going back the other direction.
Oh, so it is um, kind of diversifying in other ways.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when I moved in, we were integrating the area, and now the whites moved out, and now it's going the other direction. When the Blacks move out, or or get old and have to go, to a nursing home or move back with their children or something, then the Hispanics seem to be taking over those houses.
I see. Interesting. Had you had any relationships with I see these maps behind you. That's why it makes me feel as though you're a woman of the world, global. And describe why you have those there.
Because there was so many things happening in Africa that when they would call a country, I wanted to be able to go and look at the map and see just what location it was.
Uh-huh.
So I have been a person wanted to know, even if I didn't want to go there, I wanted to know what part of the world is it and how close is it to the U.S.
Wow.
That,
Have where have you traveled?
I have been to Australia, London, and Canada. I think that's
Mhm.
it.
Okay. Because you made your way around the United States, so I was trying to figure out where else around the globe you've been.
Right. Well, as far as the United States, I probably have been in most of the states
Wow.
because I was a member of the International Training and Communication, the ITC organization, and they had their conventions in different areas of the country.
Hmm.
And I was attending most of those conventions.
Wow. So, I mean, in growing up or over the years, well, before came to Washington and before you got involved with NCNW, I want to talk a little bit about, the women in your lives, in your life, and if there were any particular women who, you sort of admired or had an impact on some of your life's experiences.
Uh, no, not well. My mother was my greatest champion of learn to do something other than being a farmer's wife. And my school teacher, I went to a one room school in Tennessee for those first 8 years of learning, and the teacher name was Maggie Thompson, and so she was very good. And so I wanted to be worldly like Miss Maggie Thompson. She probably just lived probably 20 miles up the road from us. But as a youngster, that was a worldly person.
Right, right.
So anyway, but that was the two women in my younger life. And so as I've grown older, it's just I've been around, oh, I guess, all my classmates and things that have helped me with learning and knowing how to become a better person. Because that's why I joined the Toastmasters Club, to learn how to speak, because I was so shy. I just could not talk that much. So anyway, so that taught me. And then when I started working for the Postal Service, they had the unions, and so the unions would have meetings, and they didn't know how to operate their meetings. So we started studying parliamentary procedure. So I got involved with that. So it was just a lot of things that I became involved in, just because something else in my life that was happening at that time.
Wow. Did you ever remarry?
No, did not.
Okay. All right. Any children?
I have had two children,
Uh-huh.
two boys. One is deceased now. He had sickle cell anemia, and so he passed 2 years ago.
Wow. Okay. All right. And your other son?
Son, he's still here with me.
Good,
He's
good.
not married. So
Staying busy.
yes,
So, So, when I'm just curious about at what point did you learn about Dr. Height
I
or Mary McLeod
I,
Bethune, either one of
I
those women?
joined the National Council of Negro Women in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because, as I said, I was a member of the ITC group, and some of the members in the ITC group were National Council of Negro Women members. And so they invited me to join their section there in Minneapolis. But so when I moved here, I just looked for the section, and that's how I got with the Washington section here. And that's when I met Dr. Height
Okay.
and everything.
Had you known about Dr. Bethune before?
I did not.
Mhm.
Not until, as I said, in Minneapolis, they talked about her all the time in the section meeting.
Mhm.
You know how the organization got started, because in Minneapolis now, our section there had Black and white women in it.
Wow.
Yep. So
So why did you decide to join?
because my club member belonged, and I wanted to belong to.
Were they doing any work or anything that you thought or that you
Now,
found interesting, or how or did you get engaged in any of the work that they were doing in Minnesota?
we had a they had a lot of training going on, as I said, learning different things. At that time, we were, as I said, trying to get everyone adept at speaking and knowing a parliamentary procedure.
Mhm.
And so we had a lot of classes on that.
So it sounds like you like the organization because of the personal development
Yes.
aspect of it, that it really helped.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And what else do you think made it attractive to you?
It was that we were helping sisters. You see that they too would become more knowledgeable, and and if you know that you are shy, but there are people that are very outspoken and speak well, you want them to advance and to go out there and fight your battle, speak up for you,
Mhm.
and that's what you want to do, those people to develop.
Did you find so it did help with leadership skills as well, it
Yes,
sounds like.
absolutely.
Mhm. So, you can join an organization, like you said, you were shy, but there must have been something in you that it sparked, that you discovered about yourself that made you more confident. And so it was the speaking, but what else? Was there anything else?
Mm, I think that was probably it for me, because I I belonged to the ITC group when I moved here, the business professionals organization I belonged to, and the National Council of Negro Women. So those are three organizations that I belong. Oh, actually four, because I belong to the parliamentary group too. Because so there was four organizations that when I moved here I was member. So I just transferred my membership for those four organizations.
When
And
you
so I
said,
was more active in the ITC group than I was in the in CNW.
mhm. You mentioned the business and professional women's organization, or was it
Mhm.
just a organization?
No, it's a business and professional women.
Okay.
They were going strong until I guess 2012 or something, that they finally decided to go. I guess digital is the word for it now.
Hmm.
So the organizations, I think there are still some members around someplace, but it's, as I said, more digital now.
So you lived in Maryland, but was it the Washington chapter that you joined? How did
Yes,
you get involved?
because the Washington section, when I was in at work, the ITC group that I belonged to, there were members there that belonged to the Washington section. So that's how I was introduced to that section.
Okay. Did you work in the district?
I worked in the district in USP as headquarters,
Oh, okay.
425 L'Enfant Plaza.
Yeah, okay.
That's where I worked.
Right. Did you drive then?
Mhm. Every
Okay.
day,
You still driving?
every day.
Fantastic. Yeah, so you were one of those early commuters.
Excuse me just a minute.
Sure.
A tissue. Yes, I was a commuter from way back when.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Wow, nice. So in addition to personal development, were there any things about um, the Washington section that you liked that they were doing community wise outside of the
Well,
in the community?
as a section, we always had the fashion show. I did like the fashion shows, although I could not afford those fashions that they showed, but I did like to go. And then recently we have started the jazz luncheon, so I'd like the jazz luncheon. And with the jazz luncheons, we were had the uh, auctions of different things that the members had donated. So that was fun to be part of that.
Wow. So that brought you into the city a lot because I guess a lot of the events were held in DC.
Yes, a lot of the events were held here in.
So, so the fashion show, for example, where was that held?
Most of them were downtown in one of the hotels.
Hotel.
Washington, Hilton was one of those that was a lot of times at Washington Hilton.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you like DC? I mean, you lived other places. What was your favorite city?
Oh, no, my favorite city is Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
DC's got some great museums and things that and when people come to the city and they tell me what they would like to see and I can take them to wherever they want to see, and that is the way that I get to see the object, because most of the time when I'm here I'm studying for some exam or looking up or working on some project another for one of the organizations that I belong to. So
Mm-hmm. So what um, at some point you decided or someone else decided that you had the leadership skills to become a president of the Washington section. How did that happen?
no, no, did not happen. Not a
Oh,
president. I am a long time member, but never a president.
okay.
I was part of the Inez Davis administration. I think I was a treasurer at that time,
Mm-hmm.
but nope, not a. As I said, there are four other organizations. There are just so many president positions you can hold at the same time. You can't do it all.
Right. And you still are you active in your church too?
I'm still active in the church.
Which church do you attend?
I did Union Wesley AME Zion Church,
Oh, okay. That's where Reverend who was your pastor that just
Relford.
right. But wasn't Reverend
Durant was there prior to him.
right. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes.
Yes,
How long have you been a member there?
since 1980.
Oh, okay. And
Mhm.
do you hold positions there too?
I did, but I was one of the trustees for years, and was the not the treasurer, but I wrote the checks for the employees of the church for a
Mm-hmm.
long time. But after a while, I just that was just too much work, so I had to give it up.
So you've been a member of the Washington section now for about how long?
Well, I'm sure I joined probably 78 or 79. I'm not sure what year it was, but it was 78 or 79 because I joined shortly after coming to Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Why have you stayed involved?
Because you don't want the organization um, to flounder, and you want to be able to help the youngsters that are coming or try to get younger members, I would say, not youngsters, but younger members to come into the organization, because it could benefit them. I could see that it could benefit them more than I would be benefited, because as I said, I was over the hill practically when I moved here. Over the hill meaning that, in my in my 50s at that time. So that was one thing.
And how have you seen the organization either change or grow over
Well,
since you joined?
at this current time, I think we have a lot of uh, younger members that are really stepping up to the plate and doing wonderful, and carrying on very well. So I'm proud of them doing that.
What did it mean when to you, because you remember then when Dr. Height and NCNW bought that building on Pennsylvania Avenue?
That was one of our crowning moments to have that done. We were there for the unveiling of it and all of that, and the parades. So we were able to watch the parades from there. In a couple of years we did that when the parades were inaugural parade would come by. We could see
Mm-hmm.
it. So that was great.
Right, right. Were you involved in any of the fundraising efforts for the building?
We were always in a fundraiser for the building. Always. That was a constant. Yeah, I couldn't find my box. They had the box where we used to save what all our change, and we would whatever after the box were filled, we would take it down and donate that money that was in there to the organization.
I have one of those too. I need to find it myself. I used to have
Right,
it
I
on my
was looking
dresser,
for it.
but
I couldn't remember what did I do with it. I know it's still here someplace.
right, right. And some people, I mean, one of the things I used to enjoy was the Black family reunion. Did you ever attend
I
that?
attended all the Black family reunions and worked most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so yes, we attended all the Black family reunions and worked at all of them. That we were either handing out T-shirts or water or something, uh, trying to take memberships. For anyone that was coming by that were not members of the National Council, we would try to talk them into it.
Right. So how did this Washington section actually support the national?
All of their fundraisers, well, as all sections, they're supposed to give, I think it's 10%. I don't know the percentage. Don't quote me on that. I didn't pay attention as I should. But of the profit from whatever fundraiser we would have would go to the national.
Mm-hmm. And if if you could tell young people today, I mean, do you think that there's still a need for the organization?
Hmm.
Do you think there's still a need?
For fundraising,
No, for the National Council of Negro Women or the Washington section.
yes. I am amazed at the number of young people are unaware that we have a history, that we have members that have been in 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 position, and that talked. Dr. Height had the telephone numbers of the uh, congressional officers, and would talk to them. She would talk. She got in audience with the president, so it wasn't just she not just having an organization, but to to get the money that was required to keep that building and keep the organization going. She was out there all the time, speaking to not just not here in Washington D.C., but all over the country, to
Mm-hmm.
that were had money that could help the organization and to carry on her ideals and hopes and dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And so yes, there's still a need because we're still the last group of people to get jobs, the last one that allowed or given uh, building or monies to buy homes, and all of those things are still needed. People need to be trained of how to get it and how it's done and how it should be done.
Mm-hmm. How has the organization recruited? What do you find is most successful in recruiting young women to get involved?
It most hmm, in the recruiting in our recruitment for our organization has been members that they know in other pursuit, and they are either have jobs and that they have come in contact with them in that manner, or is their children know someone that would benefit from membership in their organization.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not children, then they're relatives or family members. So it's a community. And when you're, as Miss Davis has her travel club, and so she gets a lot of people that involved, and so then they would say, well, there's our organization. We're helping our organization to stay vital in this city. So we're going to New York, we're going to Atlantic City, just things of that sort. So when people can have fun, they'll think about an organization, if that organization is having fun, as well as teaching them vital things to for their lives and everything.
How often do you all meet?
Every month.
Do you, and you attend? Well, I guess you can't do it so much now with, well, not in person, but you're
We
meeting.
have our Zoom meetings.
Okay.
and the committees meet by phone or whatever, that phone where everyone can hear each other.
Right. How did you learn to operate Zoom?
Everyone was on Zoom. I don't know which organization had it first. Our church started it. I know the church started it, but then the next month, the section had it, and now all the training this year has been Zoom meetings.
Mhm.
Training that have been going off to New York to attend for a whole week. It was all on Zoom this year.
Wow.
So it was. So I've had quite a few Zoom meetings.
How do you like it?
Well, it's great when the people that are operating the Zoom can keep the pictures and audio good. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have someone on the spot so that when someone is muted themselves, they don't know how to unmute themselves, and so they can talk. It makes a difference.
Right. But do you miss meeting in person with your?
Oh yes, there is. I miss church very much so, and I don't think we're going to be able to go back to that because we always had when we induced everyone, we'd get up and hug all the members that we knew, and so we're not going to be able to do that for a long time.
Yeah.
With this pandemic going.
And what about your section meetings?
Yes, that too. We're really going to need to, but we, as I said, with the young members, they know that computer and the Zoom meeting was a snap for them. They went right to that with no problem at all.
Right.
They're having great meetings.
So how is that working? I mean, because it sounds like you have which is good, you have a lot of younger members now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've talked to several of the longtime members, and how is that working? Are they kind of listening to the history and values of the past, and are you all able to appreciate what they bring, or how's that working?
We appreciate the youngsters having that knowledge to get things done, and that's the main thing. Because if an officer wants to be in there and they just want to be in their name only, that's not any good for the organization either. So, but they're coming in and working, and I think that they want to see that the organization thrives also. Mm-hmm. Because to say they're moving up in their positions at work, and so this is a good thing for their resume, I would think. Mm-hmm. Their community, involvement.
And when you look at them or you talk to them, what seems similar or different, say from your generation when you were their age compared to these young women today? Do you think about that?
Uh, for our section members,
Mm-hmm.
I guess no, because the section members, the, our young people are have positions that I would have loved to have had when I was in their age.
Mm.
So I don't, but that's why I'm thinking that they're doing a great job in maintaining the organization. Is because we started off, trying to buy our shoe straps and trying to keep it going, and having the fashion shows and things of that, and trying to involve all the people in the community. Whereas they have all, they have all kinds of ideas going that we had no idea about doing, but
Mm-hmm.
they
Like
have
what? Have you, can you give me an example of something that,
of the things that they,
yeah, maybe one thing that you're like, oh, that's a good one.
well, just in speaking, and when there's a getting, I guess the videos of different speakers. If we can't have the person there in person, to get a video, we get that, and so we can show it, and still get the training
Mm-hmm.
that's needed.
Is the relationship still as close with between the section and the national? Is it still strong or
I don't know if we're as strong as we were when we had Dr. Height, because Dr. Height would show up at the meetings when you didn't expect her to. So, she was, I think she was a driving force in that manner. And I don't think we are volunteering as often, meaning the section members are not volunteering as often at headquarters as we used to. There used to be someone in the section that was there practically every day. So I don't know whether or not that's being done right now,
Mhm.
organization, but the national officers are well aware of all of our members and officers, and so when there's something to be done, they're on the phone with those members and to get them to volunteer. So they're still volunteering, but it's just that I don't think we're as involved as we used to be, because we were volunteering every day to do just ordinary things at the office.
Right. NCNW is one of those organizations that didn't drop the word Negro.
No,
And how do you feel about that?
I think it's a name that we had. It was something. It was what our titles were way back when. It won't change if we change the National Council of Black Women. It won't change anything at all. It'll still be the same organization.
Do you think
So
it should change the name or just leave it?
just leave it, because it was just as when we were going through the being a chairman, a chairwoman, a chairperson. If you're looking at a at a position, the name of the position, you're not thinking of it as it being a person. So
Mhm.
whether you say chairman, is that's what it would be if you were in there as the chairman of that organization. So that what I'm saying, that when we were going through that, all that when they were changing names, so we don't want to be politically correct and everything. But they should be looking at whether or not there's a position that someone fills, and not because of the name of the position, but because they are doing the job that
I
has to be
got you.
done.
Mhm.
So,
So last year, as this national election was moving forward, there was a chance that there could finally be a woman named as vice president, and there was even a greater chance that that woman could be a Negro woman or a Black
mhm.
woman. Did you all talk about that? I know that you're a nonpartisan organization, so you can't.
We did not talk about that, but we were very proud that she has all the knowledge to carry it off. She's just as well equipped as any man to do the job. And I was just looking at one of the pictures of the president-elect. I'm saying, now don't go and have a heart attack, screaming at Trump when you don't have to, because we don't want them to, really throw out the election. So, no, that was, no, it was just because now, that all the sororities are members of the National Council of Negro Women. That's part of them. And so, yeah, we were very proud of that.
Mm-hmm. And, there's been a lot said, even President-elect Biden even said that he owes Black America, a lot because they've always been for him, and now he wants to be for
For
them
Black
or for
America.
us.
Mhm.
But women, Black women, they've been credited for not only her success, but his success because of the engagement. Do you think NCNW has historically played a role in getting Black women in positions otherwise held by other people?
Um, Now, I would want to go on record saying that I see that happening, but
Mhm.
but I'm saying that if when our young members are out there and they have the qualifications, I'm hoping that if someone is in a position to say that would be a very good position for you to be involved in, why don't you put your application in?
Mhm.
So no, I do not know of any that are doing that, but as I say,
Yeah.
I know that our members are qualified to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I know that probably it means a lot when you're filling out an application and they ask you organizations that you belong to, that, members probably feel pretty proud of being able to say, I'm a member
Hmm.
of NCNW, even at this point. And I
Yes,
guess that's still true.
absolutely. Yes.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So if you could wave a magic wand
Hmm.
and tell this new leadership, this of the Washington section, that in 10 years or 5 years, I hope that you all will either continue to do this or that you will do that. What would those things be?
10 years from now, I hope that you, as the young officers in our organization, will still be thinking about the Job Corps, that you would want to be working with the girls that are with our teenagers, to help them become members of the National Council of Negro Women. We miss out on when we wait until the young woman has reached college age, and at that point she's gotten all kinds of offers for different places and things that she can do. So that we need to start as in high school and grade school, teaching them about women and their position, that there is no position that you cannot hold, or as long as you prepare yourself now, so that they're looking, that they have aspirations to be more than just, as I said, I just had such low expectation to be a secretary. Now you can say I can be president of the United States, and so that you want to become equipped with all the knowledge to do that. And so I hope that that's what you're going to be doing for these the next 10 years, so that when 1919, I'm really aging myself, when
Sure.
2030 comes, I want to have more than just one person out there running for national office. I want to have more Black women on that panel
Mhm.
and say, I want to be president of the United States of America. And this is my platform. This is what I would be working for.
I like that. So you saying that the NCNW leadership really needs to go deeper,
Deeper,
to
yes.
attach, to connect, or to, yeah, connect with young girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't. Does the organization do that now, or that's why you would like to see them do it in
I
the
don't
future?
think we do enough, that we need to, because we wait for the mothers and fathers to push their young girls. But we need, as an organization, if we're going to be taking care of our sisters, some of us do not have young girls in our family
Mhm.
that we can introduce to National Council of Negro Women, so that we need to go to the schools and present ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean, I joined initially when I was in undergrad at Howard.
Right,
Um, and because I was just so excited to hear about the organization. I learned
mhm,
about Dr. Bethune, and then of course Dr. Height.
right.
But it was those Black family reunions that really
Really did
did
no,
it.
absolutely, and I really, now that's one thing I really do miss is the Black family reunion. Those were great. We're
Hmm.
introduced to so many uh, places and people and things. It was just, as I say, I don't know, that I do miss.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's one way of reaching, like you said, those younger people, because families were out there and they had their
Yes,
little girls with them.
they
So
absolutely did.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So Sanderson, I don't know if there's anything else I can ask you. I think I've gone through most of our questions, but is there something that you might want to share with me that I didn't ask?
No, I think we covered everything that I'd been making notes on of that we were going to talk about
Hmm.
in one way or another. No, as I said, when I moved here from Minnesota, I knew that I was going to join the National Council of Negro Women here. Didn't know the section name at that time, but so but there was other organizations that I belonged to, and as I said, I've been working all this time.
Hmm.
Have not stopped working. So after I finished working, I mean, after I retired from the Postal Service, I started preparing taxes for the H&R Block office, and have been doing that
Oh,
since I retired from the Postal Service.
you're still doing taxes?
I'm still doing taxes.
Wow.
They still have tax problems out there. So, so that's why, uh, if you say, well, that girl, she doesn't know very much about NCNW, but NCNW knows that Norma is out there, and most of the time they'll say, well, she's probably doing her taxes now.
Wow. Wow. I guess another question is friendships. Have you acquired some pretty lengthy friendships with some of your members?
Yes, as I said, Miss Davis, knowing
Hmm.
her, she and her sister very well. I try to go on some other trips that they offer. Yes, and then my friend Diana Harvey, she joined NCNW on my behalf. I said, "Come on, you need to join."
Hmm.
So that we could go to the conventions and have the activities for the jazz luncheons and the fashion shows and everything.
Right, right. So what else do you do besides, to kind of, well, these days, but what else do you do, kind of when you're in your daily life to stay so young-minded and active? How do you spend your time?
Reading and trying to keep up with what is going on in the world.
Mhm.
That's why I like the map. As I said, I want to know where is that in the world, and what kind of people, and then as a tax preparer, every now and then you will get someone from the University of Maryland that is from a country, and you say, okay, I got to go home and see where that place is,
Mhm.
so that you kind of keep in touch with what's going on in the world and what people are doing in those different areas of the world.
Do you have a bucket list?
Not at this point, as Rolark. I have done a lot of travel, and I have talked to countless people. And by me still working, doing taxes, no bucket list. Now,
Mhm.
my bucket list is to get 8 hours of sleep at night and not be worried about something that's going to happen the next day.
Yeah, I didn't know if, it was getting that red Jaguar, or, that trip someplace, or
My son always is thinking about that I want well, you would never buy that car. I said, no, I would never buy that car because it's too much. And all you need is a four wheels that'll take you from point A to point B. It doesn't have to be, the biggest car or the most fancy car in the world. No,
Mm-hmm.
that is not, never was on my list.
Right, right.
And by being an officer in the parliamentarians and the business professional women's club, it got me in a lot of different states at the conventions and things. So
Mm-hmm.
I've had to travel, and so hotel rooms are not my thing.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
And are you still involved with the ITC?
ITC, no.
Okay.
After I retired from the Postal Service, because that organization met at the Postal Service in the building, and so I didn't want to join another section, so I did not rejoin with them.